I'm Christina Rhea, and welcome to Breaking Out of Breaking In, a practical filmmaking podcast about taking your creative career into your own hands and making great work that gets seen without playing the Hollywood game.
Or at least while changing the rules. Hi, I'm Bri Castellini, your other co-host, and today we are breaking down building community and checking in with our first three-time guest, filmmaker Micah Khan, about his recent debut feature experience and what's coming up next. Before we dive in, remember that we release bonus content for every single episode of this podcast over on patreon.com/breakingoutpod. So definitely check that out if you want to support us and get yourself even more information and resources. So I think we originally had this idea for this episode because both of us moved fairly recently, moved away from our original sort of filmmaking hub of New York City. And we have both faced unique challenges related to rebuilding a filmmaking community, especially during a pandemic, especially during a time where neither of us are filmmaking. Yeah. So what's going on in upstate? What can you tell us about moving away? Because you didn't just move away from your original hub. You moved away from like a major city and a major filmmaking place. So I imagine that's challenging.
Yeah, definitely challenging. But also, I did move away from a filmmaking hub and a city, but I moved to a town that is very well established in the sort of broader arts community. And the reason for that is because there was the oldest artist colony in the US was here till basically the Great Depression, and then it turned into a foundation for the arts. And so that was a big reason why I was interested in the town, just for vibes, really, more than anything. But that has been good. That's been good for me because the foundation offers workshops. And so one of my big strategies for the new year was to try and get in with them on the teaching level to offer some film workshops to locals and maybe see what else I could do beyond that if it takes off. And just as of this week, I got a workshop approved. And that worked really through my neighbor, I would say, because like it kind of goes back to Micah's episode where we were talking about networking in general and networking laterally. And so instead of like trying to go directly to the foundation and impress them with my credits as this newcomer from the city, I just naturally bonded with my neighbor who is a painter and she does wonderful work. And she introduced me to someone else at the foundation who then gave me a direct contact to the person who does programming. And then it all just kind of took off. And they're excited to try this new, they have a whole bunch of workshops in different mediums, but they haven't done anything film specific. So they're excited about that. And I'm, of course, excited to get back to teaching and being creative and inspiring people who maybe never thought about trying filmmaking.
That's awesome. Can you tell us what the class is about?
A lot of the full-time people who live here are retirees, and then there are a lot of like vacation home type people. And so I'm definitely going to be targeting the retirees who like to take these workshops in general. Like I mentioned at the beginning of the year that I took a ceramics class and it wasn't really my thing. And that this is the same organization that does that. And then also students. So there are like colleges nearby that don't necessarily have film programs. And so it'll be a lot of like newbies on either side, either people who are just trying to figure out like, can they make a career in film? What is filmmaking? And then more like hobbyists, people who have time on their hands, who maybe want to learn a new skill or just learn about storytelling in that medium. And so the workshop will be very focused on like, what is short form filmmaking? What is a short film? And how do you frame and express yourself through moving images? And so it'll be a kind of like film 101 with some hands-on grouping of people. By the end, they'll have some sort of short film, you know. I'm not going to touch editing, so I think I'll go like really old school and have them shoot in order while explaining to them what editing is, but like basically have them shoot a sequence and then maybe play with music and stuff with them. But that's kind of the basics of it. It'll be a 6-week thing. And then if there's interest, maybe then there'll be level 2 and level 3. And I think also for the artists here who work in other mediums who are more career oriented, I might then talk about doing some of the stuff that we do and talk about that are more like building an audience and raising funds and all of that. But for now, it'll be very early craft focused.
That's cool. That's funny because I'm also teaching early craft stuff for that CBS Pipeline Challenge thing that I work for, and that's starting up soon. And that's definitely a way to meet people, certainly. Actually, I was teaching a workshop yesterday, and I was talking about how we met because somebody in the audience asked, like, for those of us who are kind of socially awkward, how, when you go to an event, do you, like, get somebody's email? Because I was talking about, like, building email lists, and I was like, I mean, I can just give you the line, and the line is, do you have a card? I was like, just trade business cards. I was like, have a business card and just ask somebody if you're in a conversation with them, especially, but even if you're not, and you've like seen them speak or something, just be like, hey, that was great. Can I have your card? Easiest thing in the world. And then I told the story of us meeting and how that was it. You taught a class. We exchanged cards. I stalked you for years, and now we're best friends. And
That's
like,
right.
but like, yeah, it's. I think people are still so caught up in like, you have to network with like a very specific thing in mind. And I like that you called out that you just got to know your neighbor.
Yeah,
You
I mean, and
moved to a place that vibed with you, and you talked to people who were interesting to you. And lo and behold, cool opportunities came from it.
right. And I think, honestly, it was more on her than it was on me because I'm the like awkward one who doesn't know how to be a neighbor outside of New York City where you basically ignore each other. And so, she's an older woman who moved from the city as well, but like 15 years ago. And so she kind of knows what we're going through in that adjustment. And she was really lovely. She came over and brought us a plant. And I think like she's a woman. She's from the Dominican Republic. She's one of the few women of color I've met in my small upstate town. And so I think there was on her part an interest in me. She recognized another woman of color and on her block, no less. And I was excited to meet her as well, just for that same reason. But yeah, I then made a point to sort of build a relationship because she brought it over and I could have left it at like, oh, I met a neighbor and that was that. But then I started texting her back and forth about things, particularly her cat who likes to come around our house and try and...
Oh, she's the owner of the...
She is the owner of the
peeping
cat.
tomcat.
The peeping tomcat, yes. So that was a way that we bonded as well. And then it evolved into a friendship where now we take walks together and it's very wholesome and small town cute.
I think you're touching on something that I have been struggling with, which is like the maintenance of meeting people, because like it's one thing to give advice about like research events in your area, attend events, attend meetups, host your own, but like keeping in touch with people is so hard.
Yeah.
Like in LA, it takes about 2 months to set up one coffee meeting. And then if you hear from that person in the next calendar year, it is a miracle of epic proportions. Like when I first moved out here, a lot of our booby former guests who I hadn't met, but who you knew were based in LA. And I reached out to a bunch of them to actually like meet up in person. And I've only seen like 2 of them. Like Kim Garland and I spent months trying to connect for coffee, and we just never did. It's been over a year of me and Kim Garland every couple of months being like, oh, we should get coffee, and then completely failing to do so. I allegedly have a coffee date with Liz Manishill tomorrow, who was from our freelancing episode.
Nice.
And that's only because she literally just moved like a couple of miles away from me, and it is the perfect time between her moving and her having a second baby and making a new feature. It just happened to work out that she moved nearby me, and we were emailing, and I was like, I know you're free. Let's go get coffee. It's crazy. I don't even know if I've met Liz in person ever. Liz has been on 2 of my podcasts from 2 different eras of my life. I have known her for ages, and I don't actually know if I've ever met her in person. And we have been living in the same like city for almost 2 years. Why is this so hard? Like, I feel like it's definitely harder in LA in some ways to meet people than in New York, because in New York, everyone's like transportation is very equalized.
Right.
But
yeah.
The distance in LA is so much greater, and the pain of parking and the pain of like what time of day is traffic going to be terrible, and like all of these different aspects make
I think
it's so hard.
it's also easier to go out like late night for drinks because you can take the train home instead of having to drive.
Yep. Yeah, because you don't have to worry about over imbibing. You don't have to worry about traffic. Like you just go out, and like that's definitely something that I didn't really think about missing, because like my early adulthood was in New York, so I never really experienced a early adulthood where drinking and like going out after 8 p.m. was a part of my regular social life until I had regular access to public transit. So it has been interesting to come to a new community, one that I'm familiar with because I grew up in car culture, but relearning what the differences with car culture and being an adult is.
Yeah.
That's definitely been an adjustment. Like I'm going out tonight with some coworkers, but like they want to meet at like 8 p.m. And I was like, I'm 31. It's 8 p.m. is my prime reading time, you guys. Why are you doing this to me?
Yeah. If each of our examples tell you anything, it's that you have to adapt to where you are and what makes sense for building community there. And the strategies that have worked in the past may not work now, especially post-COVID. I would say a lot of the strategies that worked in the past just generally don't work. But yeah, like for me, I'm still finding my footing because I'm so used to city living where you see people so regularly in public transportation, people in your neighborhood, or just going out to so many events. There are so many things to go to. Here, that's not the case. And so I have to be really strategic and really proactive about looking for things to attend and meet people at.
And I think in terms of advice for keeping in touch with people is just showing up, being genuinely interested and just showing up. Like when people invite me to things, especially if it's things for them, like I try to be there. I try to be there as often as I can. That's already such a gift that somebody has invited you and you don't have to organize anything. So just show up for people. Go to their screenings, go to their film festivals, like as much as you can show up, and just your presence maintains the relationship, even if you don't have anything active to talk about, which has definitely been my struggle. It's just like, I have nothing new to say to anybody. I'm not working on anything immediately relevant to anyone. Like, is this even worth it? But it's like, I don't know. I like surrounding myself with interesting people. So I'm going to keep showing up, and then maybe it'll go somewhere, or maybe I'll just continue to know interesting people. It's a win-win.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, this is a terrible segue, but a necessary one to Drama Alert. It's time for the Drama Alert segment. There was new screenwriting Twitter drama.
Oh, yes.
There's one real screenwriting Twitter drama, and then one, I wouldn't say fake screenwriting Twitter drama, but more just like everyone collectively was upset. Yeah, discourse. There was screenwriting discourse and screenwriting drama this month. So on March 2nd, at ZuckerZach tweeted, many talented screenwriters fail for one of two reasons. 1, lack of an understanding of what the marketplace wants. 2, belief that they're the exception to the rule. Parentheses, X rarely sells, but my version of X will be so good they'll make mine. And then there's like 2 more tweets in this thread, but like that was the original tweet, was just about like why talented screenwriters fail. And would you believe it? But everyone had a lot of feelings about this. The main sort of other side of this drama was from an account at Jeffrey Howard 33. Where he says, just read thread of the worst business advice. Please don't follow trends. Please write your passion. Passion sells. Chasing trends largely a dead end. Those decisions you're chasing are 2 years old. Time moved on. Ouch. So like, as with most screenwriting Twitter drama, we have been presented with 2 ways to succeed. 1, follow the trends. The other, follow the passion. And anyone who agreed with either of them split down the middle and screamed at the other side. And I mean, as with most screenwriting Twitter drama, I feel like the actual answer lies somewhere in between.
Right, totally, yeah.
But Twitter hates nuance, especially Elon Musk's Twitter.
That's right. And I think actually a lot of what Micah goes on to talk about in this episode is that balance between the two. So, and that like that's kind of what you have to be aware of the market. If your goal is to make a living doing this, but also people who are inauthentic to who they are and what they care about, that's always going to fail in any capacity.
Yeah, it's like you can pay attention to trends without being cynical about what you do to apply to those. And I think that's often like the missing piece, is that, yeah, of course, when you treat it like strictly like a business and not like an art form, that's not going to work. But if you just treat it like an art form and pretend like you're above the business, that also doesn't work.
Yeah.
And so then in terms of the screenwriting discourse from this week when we are recording this episode was also the week that the Armchair Expert episode with Jenna Ortega went live, where she like brags about how she would frequently change her character's lines on the show Wednesday without like talking to the writers, and I think she has some quote that's like she was like straight up disrespectful about it because she didn't like the direction that some of the scripts took, and so she decided to just change them on the day when nobody could tell her anything. And screenwriting Twitter, of course, got pretty upset, which makes sense. I'm inclined to give her the benefit of the doubt to a certain extent because she's pretty young, because she was on Armchair Expert, and I find that Dax Shepard is good at needling people into saying crazy shit. But also, like, you know, Karina Aldi McKenzie had some good tweets about this, specifically related to, like, hey, maybe don't shit talk your colleagues in public forums as if it's a good thing. And also there were threads about like people making the point that, you know, that writing a script isn't like one person writes it and then it gets on television, right? There's like 20 people who write a script and have to give permission for it. So like it's a little bit reductive to say like, oh, I didn't like the direction the writers were taking. It's like probably the writers didn't like it either, or there's a reason why they had to do it this way.
Right. I think that her tone was dismissive and not great, but I think it was coming from a place, I don't think she meant to be harmful. I think she was specifically coming from a place of talking about how much she cared about the character and wanted to protect the character and felt like certain choices didn't make sense for the character. And so I think that like there wasn't the intention wasn't to harm, but the outcome was what it was. And I think it's, to me, it most read as like really naive about how the business actually works. And that, because it's funny, like as a viewer, I actually agreed with her point that a lot of the things that made no sense about the show, like having a love triangle, you know, that didn't really make sense to me at all. That didn't really work to me at all. But that is so blatantly an executive requirement. Like that just feels like a network requirement for a teen drama, you know? So it's just like, that's not the writers. That's following a mandate, you know? And so, yeah, it was like naive and unfortunate, and I hope she learns from it because she is only 20.
Yeah. I also wonder how much of it is like, as a much younger actress in like a much different industry, how siloed she probably is from that process. Because I feel like in older shows, the writing and the acting were much more intertwined. Whereas now I feel like, especially the way that we do like binge shows where, you know, they just put out the whole season or whatever, they write so separately from when they like shoot and everything that I wonder if she just is so detached from the process because of the way that television gets made now that she actually doesn't know how that works. And I wonder how much of it is like the time of the industry, not just how old she is personally. But yeah, high level, everybody, don't talk shit about your colleagues. Like you can frame being protective of your side of the process without throwing someone else under the bus. And even if you really believe that somebody deserves to be thrown under the bus, unless they are being like actively like dangerous or abusive in a way that people need to know and you're being a whistleblower, just keep it yourself.
Yeah, I thought that was just not to like beat a dead horse, but that was kind of part of the other side of the argument that I think Karina Adley McKenzie made, was that like directors could go around talking about how they fixed an actor's performance in post, you know, but they don't do that because that's fucked up, you know. Well, there are many, we're all on the same side, right? Like we're all trying to make the best possible thing that we can make with the resources and the restrictions that we've been given, because at the end of the day, when you're making something through a network and working with so much money, you're beholden to the top decision makers in a variety of ways.
Yep, that's it. All right, well, that has been Drama Alert. Thanks so much for joining us. So to wrap up our segment before we hop into Micah's Micah's interview, which is really, really cool. He talks about his experience making his very first feature film and how he got there and how he's leveraging the community he built there to continue making cool feature films. It's time for our Buds segment. Christina, do you have any buds? Anything you're looking forward to or excited about?
Yeah, so this week, interestingly, this week has just been full of progress in general. And finally, I'm gonna knock on wood here. It seems like I am out of the notes stage with my film, and we finally started talking about casting, and that has been exciting. It's been a very exciting first step in that direction, and it seems like pitching will finally start happening for financing.
Woo, very exciting. Also, we've both made progress on our feature film that we're writing together.
That's right, yes. We have over 20 pages. You took up the mantle.
We do have over 20 pages. I think I got us to page 22, and I'm still working on it for this week, but we're almost through Act 1, I think. We're close to the end of Act 1.
You started it, you did 9 pages, then I did 9 pages, and I guess we'll continue that pattern or maybe slightly more.
It's definitely been weird for me getting back to screenwriting after having been like so hardcore in the prose world. But speaking of the prose world, my bud is that I got my first rejection from sending out query letters. I've sent out 42 query letters since the last time we talked about this, and I got my first rejection. So people are reading it. That's very exciting.
That's great.
And the rejection was from somebody that I had a big master spreadsheet that I built of like the agents of authors that I thought were similar to me, the agents of authors that I just really like. And then from there, I branched out to just agents who represent contemporary romance authors. Even if I didn't recognize the titles, if their bio said that they were looking for something even a little bit like me, I sent them a query. So I did the phase 1 of like people I like stringently researched and thought would be good fits, and then just people who might be good. And so the person, my first rejection came from the second batch, from the just mass submitting. But I feel really good about my materials. I feel really good about the way that I have structured this process. And I'm excited to receive more rejections in the upcoming months.
Cool. Yeah. The more rejections you get, the more focused you can be.
Exactly. Yeah. Narrowing it down. So yeah, those are my buds. And speaking of buds, let's turn it over to our bud, Micah. Welcome back to our first time, 3-time guest, Micah Khan.
3 times?
You're the first one, dude.
I love this. It's like being on SNL. I'm in the 3-timers club.
I think you were also our first guest officially, weren't you?
Really? No.
Yeah, you were.
Yeah,
I was your first guest?
Our second episode,
Micah.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
It's like all of our careers are the same. You get that, right? Like, your career is our career?
Yeah, I love it.
We should make jackets.
Oh, 3-timers club. And it just says booby on the back. Booby 3 times. Yeah. Booby 3.
With like a stitched like chess piece that says friend of the pod. I think that's nice.
Oh, yeah. I love it.
Well, welcome back, Micah. What have you been up to?
So, I just directed my first feature film. It's called The Zombie Wedding. It's in the Weekly World News universe. Do you guys know what the Weekly World News is?
Mm-mm.
No.
So, the Weekly World News is like a famous tabloid. Like they are like really famous for like Bat Boy found in a well or some like they're like the National Enquirer, but like the satire version of that, which is kind of odd to say out loud in general. But like they're like super famous for like my mother was Bigfoot's love slave, or what's the Chelsea Clinton is an alien. Or like Hillary Clinton is an alien and Chelsea Clinton is half alien. It's like that's a super famous one because like Hillary Clinton apparently has it framed somewhere. Yeah, it's like they're super weird like tabloid like like rag, I guess is what they used to call them. I don't know. It's not of my generation, but there's a huge fan base for it, and tons of people love it, which I'm surprised about. Like Spielberg's like a huge fan of the Weekly World News, which is weird. Like apparently he tried to make a TV show out of it a few years ago. So this is their first like cinematic endeavor. Like they're like first feature film, launching their IP studio, which is the Zombie Wedding, which is based on one of their like newer like articles.
Okay.
Yeah, wild.
Cool. So how did you get attached to that project?
Yeah.
So it was actually just like complete luck. There was an AD that was circling the project, and then their original director had dropped out of the project. And you know, he was like, "Oh, if you're looking for a new director, you should check out this guy's short film. It's kind of exactly the vibe of this movie." And so they watched the short film and they're like, "Let's hire this guy immediately." And so like I went through like the interview rounds of meeting all the producers and like having to, you know, shake hands and kiss babies, that kind of stuff. And showed them my plan. Like I read the script, showed them my plan of how I was going to execute everything. I came to them with a pitch deck, and stuff like that, and just showed them like, this is what I'm looking to do with this movie. And they're like, we like it. Let's do it. And so I came on board, and then we shot in October, and then we wrapped in November. It was an 18-day shoot. It was insane for an 18-day shoot because it was like it's a 21-person ensemble. It's
wow.
Yeah. I guess
it is
it's
a
got
wedding.
And a musical, right?
Yeah, and well, it has musical numbers in it. But not that many. Like it's got like one really solid musical number, but like it's very musical based. It's an insane cast too. Like it's just a massive cast. It was and at one point everyone's in the same room, so it's like blocking that out. Like that was a hard day for all of us, but it was like it was fun. It was fun. Some of the cast in the movie: Seth Gilliam from The Walking Dead and The Wire. Lieutenant Carver from The Wire, plays a zombie preacher, which is funny metacast that we thought of, because he plays a preacher on The Walking Dead. Sherry O'Terry from Saturday Night Live, she's in it. Siobhan Fallon Hogan from Men in Black, Saturday Night Live, and Wayward Pines, who I love. I love her. She's in what?
I love the sugar water scene.
Yes, sugar water.
More.
Since
we're talking cast, though, did you play a role in casting?
Yes, I did play a role in casting. We went through a casting director named Caroline Sinclair, but a lot of actors reached out to us because they were big fans of the Weekly World News. Because they also have a really famous musical. I didn't realize. I forgot to talk about this. They have Bat Boy the Musical, which is like a really big like Broadway, like off-Broadway musical that people do still. And we had a great like younger ensemble. Donald Chang and Deepti Menon were our stars. They're I swear to you guys, they are stars. Like they are gonna be movie stars. I don't care what happens. Something's gonna happen. The industry's gonna realize it, and they're gonna be like, these guys are it.
Since you had so many names part of the project, people who are notable for their credits, were you able to audition and chemistry test people, or was it really just like offering roles and seeing who says yes?
So we had zero time for anything. Let's be honest here. It was like
when did you pitch and come on? Because you shot in October, but when were you actually like talking originally to come on?
August. Okay, wow.
August. So August is when I officially came on. I did all my prep, my storyboards, and all that stuff like right off the bat, and then we were casting in September, and then we were shooting in October. Like we wanted to do chemistry reads, but we had no time. Like we were getting closer and closer to the shoot date, and I was like, let's just get these people cast and just hope that they talk to each other and like understand each other. And like, you know, one of the things that very early on when we were casting our younger ensemble, because I knew that they all had to be like they all had to pretend like they knew each other, right? Like they were all like best friends, and one of them, like two of them, were getting married in the movie. So it's like very early on, I was like, listen, like I know you guys don't know each other, but just make an effort to listen to each other. We never got a chance to do any chemistry reads. I was able to introduce the actors to each other maybe like a week before we started shooting, and they all luckily did their homework. You know, they all talked to each other. They got to know each other, like the younger ensemble, like, you know, Siobhan, who was playing Deepti's mom in the movie. That's another thing. We blind casted the movie. I don't know if I got a chance to say that, but like I was really invested in making sure this movie had a diverse cast. So I right off the, right from the beginning, I was like, I want to blind cast this movie. So Deep D, who's South Asian, her parents are Kevin Chamberlain and Siobhan Fallon Hogan. Yeah, I know it makes no sense, but it's so funny in the
Well,
movie.
she's like, presumably you could just assume she's adopted, right?
Yeah, exactly. Even though there's one line in the movie that insinuates that maybe it could have been a surrogacy or something.
Okay, sure.
Something. Regardless, she's their child, and Sherry O'Terry plays Donald Chang's mother in the movie. So like we really got a great diverse cast in it. And everyone was so game for it. Like Sherry was like, "My son!" Like she got really into it. She's like, she was really excited about having an Asian son. She was like showing off to her friends. We're like, "I have an Asian son." It was really funny.
That's adorable. Okay, this is your first feature. So like what are the things that like you're expecting going into it, and how did the process either validate or challenge those initial assumptions?
Everything invalidated me. Wait, Christina, you have a question?
I just wanted to ask a quick question before you
Yeah.
get into that. Did you have representation before this?
So I got a manager a year before this project. Yeah, my manager did not get me this job, but she was really helpful
Great
in the
question.
negotiation phases
Okay,
of this
that's what I was
project. She's great. Love you, Candy. Hope you're listening. She's the best. And also, just so happens, she's the one who introduced me to Donald Chang. Because Donald is repped by Candy, and Candy sent me a bunch of her clients early on when we first got repped, and she's like, if you want to work with these guys, let me know. And then I watched Donald's reel very early on, and I was like, I felt really weird about it at first. 'Cause I was like, Candy, could you ask Donald to audition for this movie, please? And she was like, yeah, of course. And then he auditioned, and everyone loved him, and I was like, perfect. My dreams do come true. So what you were saying, so everything invalidated me. It's making a feature film is just such a whole different beast. Christina, I'm sure you know what it feels like to go from short films to like a feature, because like everything and anything will go wrong. Like you'll go into a movie, like a feature film is like my dumb brain was like, oh yeah, if I can just translate my visual style from my short films into this feature film, like this is gonna be like the greatest movie ever made, right? Like and then reality sets in, and you're like running out of time constantly. So like all those cool oneers or like all those cool like staging and stuff like that, you're like all falls by the wayside. And you're like, get what we can. Shoot whatever we can. We must make our days. That was the only thing that I can think, like, we lose this location tomorrow, we must get everything in, throw everything out, shoot the coverage, make it as fun as possible, and just hope that the performance was good versus like you trying to do all these things. Like, and that being said, like I storyboarded a lot of this movie. I shot a lot of this movie with like toys to show my DP, and this is how people move in the scene, and this is how the camera will move and stuff like that. A lot of that, like 40% of that, completely gone. Because like one, the location fell through, and we had to do it in a completely new location, and we had to refigure out all the blocking and all every single thing. Two, like the location wasn't like, we had never seen the location before, and we were going in there for the first time, and everything changes. Three, just like you have no time. Like we had 10-hour days. We can only do 10-hour days. Makeup takes a long time. By the time we were shooting, we had 4 or 5 hours tops to shoot any day, and we had tons of scenes to get through. So it's like, you get what you can, and you hope that in the edit, the performances do all the work. And luckily, the benefit we had was the actors were just carrying the entire movie. Like, they were just so good, and they understood the tone of the movie, and how campy, I don't know how they did it, but they balanced the tone so perfectly. Like, it was supposed to be a campy movie, but like it wasn't like overly campy where it's like, it was like I don't know. I don't have a good example right off the top of my head, but they balanced it like it was a grounded campy, and it was so perfectly done. And each of them just nailed it, and and everyone gave their 100%. I don't know any person on set that did not give 100%. So like we had that. We had our crew that was operating at 100, and then we had our actors operating at 100 because they were like, this is going to be the greatest movie ever made as well, but they didn't have to deal with all the logistics. So they, so stuff like that, like, you have these grand plans, these grand ideas, these grand, like, I'm going to shoot it this way and it's going to be so cool and people are going to talk about this shot or whatever it is, like I'm a big Spielberg fan, and I love how Spielberg gets to shoot everything in kind of like these very short oneers that are like, that has everyone moving around in scenes and stuff like that. I love those shots, but a lot of the reality is that we didn't have time. 18 days is not a lot of time to shoot these, and Spielberg gets up to like 4 or 5 months to shoot his movies. Then that's the benefit, right? Like that, like when you have a budget, you either spend it in days or you spend it in like cast or like whatever it is. And we chose cast over days. So all that stuff was a really interesting like learning curve for me, where it was like that intersection of commerce and art, right? Like that, like, okay, great, like I have these grand ideas, but like what's the reality of what we can shoot today, and finding that balance, because like you still want to be happy with what you shot. So that being said, like 40% of what I had planned went out the window, but 60% we pretty much we nailed. And that's because we had a plan. Like we had such a solid plan for most of these things that by the time we were shooting, like shooting went smoothly until shit fell apart, and then we just figured out the problems. We troubleshoot, we figure it out. We couldn't, like, we were supposed to shoot in a taco place. We couldn't find the taco place, didn't let us shoot in there, so we had to go find an abandoned storefront. We asked the owner, can we shoot in here? And then overnight our production team built a restaurant inside. Like just like it's like a taco place restaurant. It was insane. Or sorry, a karaoke bar they built. It was a Herculean effort from that team, and stuff like that. Like every day, like there would be like, oh, we need a motel room to shoot in. There's no motel room. Okay, let's try to build it. Can't build it. It's too expensive. All right, what can we do? All right, we got this corner of the office. The production office that we had, right? And in that corner, we're like, for some reason, we're diner booths, and we're like, I was like, all right, I have an idea. Let's build a corner diner. Just like in that little corner, let's build a diner. Like, and like we'll have a server, we'll have people eating, and then like I had this like, and anything like, it's literally, the shot is this. It's like one move, because if we shot in any other direction, it's the production office, right? Mm-hmm. Like. And so what I did was, the first image you see is like this menu. Okay, great. Nut Diner, we called it, because one of the producers' last name was Nut, right? So like Nuts Diner. it was the first image you see. And then we move past Nuts Diner and we see the booths. And that's the only way we could shoot, is in this direction. And so we changed the scene to be in a diner. Like that was something we had to do the day before, because we just could not find a location, and then we could not build it.
That's interesting, because it's like, I don't know if you can talk about the budget or a range, but a lot of the stuff you're describing is like the scrappy, no budget kind of stuff we were used to. But this is supposed to be a step up for you as a director to just like wear your director hat and have money to work with. But it seems like it was still very much that.
No,
you were playing.
What's funny is like what I think I learned on making this movie is that filmmaking's the same everywhere. It's just what money gives you is time and resources, right? So like making a movie, like making Meet Cute on Dance World, my short film, was the same effort that we made Zombie Wedding on, but I was doing less work. I was just being able to focus on a handful of things versus having to do everything. Right? Mm-hmm. Like, it's still the same amount of work. It's still the same filmmaking. It's still, like, all the same stuff, except you just have more people to delegate work to. And that's the interesting thing that I feel like I found. I don't know how else to describe it, but, like, it didn't feel different. It didn't feel different that making my no-budget short film, and then making this big-budget, like, movie, it didn't feel any different.
I mean, my brother's a PA and an AD. Right now he's his second, but he's moving his way up, and he works on like Hollywood shows here in LA. Yeah. And like the stories he tells me, I'm like, what do you mean major celebrity name did the thing that like the guy on my $2 movie did? That's crazy.
Exactly. Everyone's the same. All these productions is just like, they're all the same in terms of what you're doing, right? Like you're just trying to get the shot. And the biggest difference is the amount of people you have to help you. And so like, as no budget filmmakers, we're so used to wearing multiple hats, and the only way to think about it is that people are just taking the hats off your head and lightening the weight on your head, and just being like, okay, well, I can take care of this. All right, take that, and then you get to just do this and just be Spielberg and focus, right? I don't know how else to describe it. I guess it's literally like it was the same amount of stress, it was the same amount of work, it was the same amount of everything. The thing that I learned specifically is because I've never worked with a crew, like a huge crew before, ever. I didn't know what a blocking rehearsal was. I've never done it. I've never done a blocking rehearsal in my life. So like working with my AD, like I learned what blocking rehearsals were. Cause like when I shoot like my feature, like my short films, when I shoot my short films, I just show people what I shot. I'm like, this is what you're doing. Or I was like, and I go shot by shot, right? Like I go, all right, we're doing this for this shot. We're doing this for this shot. We're doing this for this shot. I direct the shot, right? Versus like walking through the entire scene and then going, this is where the camera's going to be. This is where the camera's going to be. And like figuring that all stuff. Like that's something that was a complete new learning curve for me. And like, actors really being generous, especially like the more experienced ones who have been on huge sets, were really generous in their like their time in like and their patience, because they had seen my short films. They're like, oh, this kid knows what he's doing, but like they were very patient with me in learning the languages of film. The okay, we're bringing in for a blocking rehearsal. I was like, all right, what the fuck's a blocking rehearsal? I was like, I'll tell you what the shot is. We'll get the shot. Like. And that's because I didn't go to film school or anything like that, or like maybe I should have read more books. I have no idea. I had no idea like what it was like to do that. And by the end of it, I got good at it.
Well, I mean, at least it sounds like you had time to do rehearsals in that you had such a like condensed shooting period.
That was really because my AD was like, he was adamant about like blocking rehearsals. He's like, we need to do them a little aggressively. But
it's such a big ensemble.
Yeah.
It's such a big ensemble. It's extra important.
And I really give that to him. Like he, like forcing that, like even like there were days where I'm like, I don't fucking need to do that. And I was like, and I'm glad he did. Cause he was like, no, you need to do it. You need to understand the entire scene. And I was like, all right, man, whatever. And then I did. I was like, you're right. You're right.
So I have just a question from more of an emotional perspective, I guess.
I cried a lot.
Yes, I'm sure.
I cried at least 4 times. Yes. Yeah, that's the question. Yes, I've cried 4 times on this movie.
I mean, that's making any feature.
Yeah.
But I meant more from sort of like, this is my baby, the way that we treat our films that we're writing and directing and sort of holding from before it exists all the way through post and festivals, versus coming onto something that you didn't write and that you only have a certain amount of control over and you kind of have to let go of when it becomes its final thing in post. Like, what was that like for you as a director?
I think that for me, one of the important things to realize is like, you can come in with all these big ideas and what your version of the movie is, but like regardless, this has been with somebody else, and before that somebody else, longer than it's been with you. So letting go of that like need for control like was because I'm so used to making all the decisions, writing all the scripts, doing everything and anything that I have to get the movie made and seen. Like, that was the biggest. It's just letting go. It's like at some point it's like people are gonna do what they're gonna do with the movie. You don't have no control over it. Like, you might have a say here and there, but it's like your job is just to make the best movie possible, and the producer's job is to get the movie seen. And I'm like, all right, I did that, so it's all in their court now.
Cool.
You will go crazy thinking about it. Like, you will go for like at least 2 months. You will be like, oh, what's going on? What's happening? I need to know what's like, I'm part of this. And then you're just like, you know what, at this point, like, you just can't spend your energy on it. Like, you gotta move on and do other things, because it's like, it's just so out of your control that like you're gonna be clawing for any kind of control, and that's just gonna make you a shittier person, I think, in my opinion.
Fair enough.
Sure. Yeah.
So I'd love to go back to the art and the where art meets commerce kind of conversation, because like working with a bigger budget and having that understanding, and now moving forward to whatever you do next, like what are things that you can tell us from behind the moneyed curtain, the golden curtain? What's it like with money? How do people talk about money, Micah? Tell us.
Well, I think the biggest difference is, and the weirdest thing is in this industry, is that as soon as you make a feature film with like recognizable actors in it, people start to see you just like much more credibly, right? Like, I can't say anything like out loud yet, but
Sure.
like, I don't think it's a problem if I say this, that like I reached out to an agency through a casting director to get an actor attached to my movie, and instead
To
of
your next
like
movie.
to my next movie, and instead of like it being no, or all these questions, they just like, oh, he made this movie, it's got like, I this is my assumption, they looked at my movie, they saw who was in it, and they're like, okay, you want to talk to him? They read the script, they saw the pitch deck, they're like, okay, you want to talk to the actor? And then I talked to the actor, and now he's doing my movie. It's like, and now it's just negotiating with this agent about like what he gets out of it. And it was like such a weird difference that like as soon as you make a movie with recognizable actors, like they just see you as a different filmmaker. So now we're in this play box, right? We're in this play box of like making a feature film with an actor attached that's big enough to get a budget, right? What that budget is, we don't know yet, because we're still trying to figure out with sales agents like what the value of this movie should be, and based on that value of that actor, that's the budget we can raise, right? So it's like the idea for financiers, in the business of film, because there's so many different ways to make movies, like, all these, like, I'm really jealous of the people who are like, we made this creative effort and it's like the most sincere and sensitive movie on the planet or whatever, and they raised the money privately and they were able to do 100% their vision, right? And with actors that are not named, and maybe those actors get some notoriety afterwards for being in the movie, but like in the business of film, it's so much different. Like, and that's something that I'm learning now. It's like, depending on the actor you get, that actor can get you foreign pre-sales, they can get you domestic pre-sales, and with that, you can use that as justification for raising a budget of a movie. And if you get the right executive producer attached to the project, the right actor attached to the project, that executive producer can go to a bank and get a loan based on that value of the movie.
It's like leverage, essentially.
Correct.
You're getting
Yeah, right.
leverage.
But it's like, it's done through sales agents who can go and be like, this is the value of that actor here, and this is the value of the actor here, and based on that minimum guarantee, they call it, right? You can get money for movies, and really what it comes down to at that point is whether you're going out to financiers, a bank, whatever it is, it's just whatever the comfortable number they're okay with giving out for that. So then the idea, and the way it was explained to me by the executive producer that I'm working with now, is that you use those parameters to create a box for yourself, right? That box is your budget, and within that box, you are as creative as you can be. But that's your box. Like, and that's how all these, like, oh my God, I'm going to get so much trouble for saying this. Well, that's how all these shitty ass films get made, like, who are just like go straight to Redbox or whatever, because these filmmakers have figured out the market, right? They figured out this is the name you need, this is the genre you need, these are the foreign pre-sales you need to be able to make this movie, and then they know that regardless, like, you might not hear it out loud that, oh, this movie made its money back, but they make their money back. They make their money back in foreign pre-sales and Redbox sales, all these things, because they have certain actors and they know how those actors will do in certain places. So that's
right.
been
Yeah, you were telling us
yeah.
before we were recording that like foreign pre-sales means that like you're selling the rights to distribute your film in foreign countries before the movie is even made. Like before
Correct.
you
Just,
have a budget,
just
you're
on
like,
name. Yeah.
That's fascinating. How do you get an actor attached before you have a budget? Like before you can promise, like, I can pay you, insert actor name here, for sure eventually. Like, how does that negotiation happen before there's any money to offer? But yeah, like conversationally, is it just like they're like, hey, if you can pay me, then I would like to do the movie. So tentatively, you can use my name. You can throw the weight around a little bit.
So truthfully, and this is the part where it gets dicey, is that you make an offer. You tell them, I can pay you this much when the movie is going to get made. And if they're okay with it, they're willing to, and sometimes they'll ask you to put up like a fee, right? They'll ask you to put 10% of their fee up or like up to 50% of their fee up.
Like a safety deposit.
Correct. But you don't get that deposit back. That's the thing.
Sure.
So
that's the deposit.
Right. The idea is you make an offer to them. You make an offer, be like, this is what I can pay you. And hopefully you have some money backing you before you even start. So yeah, I don't know if that answers the question properly.
No, I think also in this world, actors are attached to projects and then drop off all the time. Like that happens.
Right.
You end up with a rotating list of actors, but while you've got them and while you can use their name, you can secure funding.
Right.
And
exactly.
then, like, hopefully swap in someone as equally enticing.
For sure. Yeah, exactly. You can build the movie. I was talking to this bigger producer. Maybe he doesn't want me to say his name, but he was basically saying that is like, get a name actor attached, build that movie. If they drop out, just swap in a new one. At least you've now built the movie. Like you have the budget, you have everything in place to make that movie. But hopefully this movie gets made with the actor that I got attached because I really like him, because he's really nice and he's really wants to do it. And also, kudos to his agent. His agent knew he wanted to do it. Like he knew that he was looking for something like this, and the agent was like, reached out to us. They're like, hey, can you consider this person? And I was like, yes. And I was
think about it.
I was like, am I dumb? Sure. It's literally like how I felt. Like they were like, oh, what? Like they reached out to, like we were out to the agency. We were showing them the script and stuff like that. And I had originally was going out to a different actor, and the agent was like, well, that's great if you want to go to him, but I know one of my actors wants to do something like this. Can I introduce you to him? I was like, yeah, I'm not fucking dumb. But how do you not just be like shocked, right? Like, cause like in my world, I'm just so used to no's. Mm-hmm. So like when someone's like, hey, do you want to talk to this person? I was like, yeah, I fucking want to talk to this person. Why would I want to talk to this person? You know what I mean?
And just to be clear, this is a script you wrote.
This is a script I wrote, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wrote the script with a friend of mine named Patrick. We wrote it over the pandemic together. It's a very contained horror film.
To kind of take a step back, you made a short film. It was Meet Cute that they showed the producers,
Yeah,
right,
Meet Cute and Dance World.
So you made Meet Cute in 2017, 2018?
2020. 2020.
Oh, wow.
We made it
wasn't as long ago as I thought.
We made it right before the pandemic hit. We made it in January.
Right.
January 2020. We made Meet Cute on Dance World. Oh. Right as soon as we finished making the film, like everything was done, pandemic hit. And we're like,
okay,
what the fuck?
I mean, truly incredible timing. So in 2020,
right.
You make this short film, and you press everywhere. You do what you can with it, and this movie starts getting made somewhat in your area, and a director drops out, and an AD remembers.
So not in my
movie.
area,
they
actually. They're I'm
really?
I'm in upstate New York, so
area like you're in the Northeast.
Northeast, yeah.
It's in the Northeast.
Fair enough.
You're a local filmmaker.
They're in southern Jersey.
Vineland.
They're in southern Jersey.
You're way closer than other places within California, even.
Yes, I'm sorry. So I interrupted you. I apologize.
I'm just trying to kind of put the timeline together for people so that they understand that, like, yes, a lot of this is luck, right place, right time, but also it's not like you're just some random guy off the street, right? Like, you made this film. It wasn't even your first film. You'd made a bunch of stuff before.
Yeah, like how, just to even go back, how many films have you made before this one that sort of opened that door?
You guys know this, but I've made 34 short films.
Yeah.
And the last 4 are good, in my opinion. So yeah,
but you had to make the first 30 to
correct.
get to those
to
good
get there,
to get to the point where I knew what the fuck I was doing and what I wanted. Yeah, Meet Cute on Dance Roll was the one. I mean, I know we kind of talked about it very early on in your first podcast, and that podcast was about networking laterally and stuff like that. And I still believe in that because that's basically what happened here. It was like just a random
an AD recommended you.
Yeah, an AD recommended me for the job, and so there you go. Proof is in the pudding, people. Network laterally. Get to make a community and get to know each other. Yeah, Meet Cute on Dance Roll was really it. You know, the fact that so many people had seen it. It got a lot of industry attention. Ben Stiller tweeted it. David Benioff gave us that crazy pull quote. So a lot of things went right. During the pandemic, Movie Maker Magazine ended up seeing it, and then they featured it on their website. And then after that, I had made some video essays. Movie Maker really liked those video essays, and they're like, "You want to come interview filmmakers for us?" And then I ended up like interviewing huge filmmakers for the magazine. My first interview with them being with Spike Lee. And that Spike Lee interview also kind of launched me into more circles that I didn't really expect to be in. And so the Spike Lee interview was actually the thing that really nailed the job, because they listened to the Spike Lee interview and they're like, that's the type of filmmaker we want to work with. And so that really helped too. So like having a bunch of content out there that people could not only just see my work, but they can see me and they can see what I'm passionate about, I think really helped. Like this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. I think that we can lose the forest for the trees, but like the trees are what make the forest. And
right.
If you are genuinely invested in the thing that you're doing, then like, you know, if it matters that much to you, stay the course. And it sounds like eventually this sort of thing will have to happen, you know? And
right. Yeah.
I think that's a really positive way of looking at all of this.
At some point your work catches up with luck, right? Like we don't know when it's going to be, but there's things you can do. There's things you can do. You can like honestly be annoying on social media. Like post your fucking move. Like post your shit. Like that's who cares if people get annoyed with you because you're spamming. Like it's your life. Like it's the thing you do. Just post it. And you might get new eyes on it each time. You don't know. Like this. People have to be vocal about their work. Like you gotta like. You can be humble wherever you want. You can be like humble in your filmmaking and your craft and stuff like that. But when it comes to promoting your movies, you cannot be humble. You cannot. There's just no room for it. Especially if you're like not a rich kid. Like you're not somebody who can just wait around and like hopefully your parents can pay your bills for you. Like you have to just be annoying as shit. You have to be loud. Like there's no room for being quiet. You know, I think of this quote. It's a shitty quote, but. A filmmaker friend of mine, a South Asian filmmaker, was talking to another South Asian writer. He's a writer. He's like he runs a big like screenwriting group on the internet.
Sounds like you're setting up a joke. So a South Asian filmmaker talks to another South Asian filmmaker.
But it's a bad one. But like, it's a bad one. But what he told her, like, she was being very vocal about like the lack of diversity in the film industry, and he messaged her and he was like, "You can't be that vocal, like." Quiet girls get work.
Oh God.
And I think about that all the time. I think about that quote all the time because I'm like, this guy is also from the South Asian community. Like we should be amplifying. And what I told her is like, you have an obligation to never be quiet again. Like you cannot, like this is what they want. They don't want you to be out there promoting the shit out of your stuff. They don't want you to get seen. They want them to get seen. You know what I mean? People want them to get seen. The people making fun of you for not sharing your shit are the people who want to be seen more than you. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So
but they're choosing a different method, and
right.
They see your method as threatening theirs.
Exactly. And so if you're a person of color, you're a person from not a lot of means in this industry, just you cannot. They tell you all the time in this industry you have to be humble. You have to be humble, and that shit's bullshit. Like it's just people. It's just another way of them trying to control, like. Who they allow through the pipeline. There's no room for being humble about promoting your work. You can be humble about your craft, you can be humble about your work, all that shit, but when it comes to like, this is my short film, watch it. Don't be shy. Like, if you see filmmakers that you admire, ask them to watch it. You know, I'm tired of people being like, oh, you can't do this, you can't do that, you can't ask people to do this. I'm like, just ask. What's the worst that happens? They either say no, and then you're right back to where you started. You know what I mean? Or they say yes, and then maybe they're like, hey, stay in touch. Maybe 10 years from now, they're like, hey, I can help you now. I don't know. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And I also think that, like, you were talking about, like, the David Benioff quote and the Ben Stiller tweet. Like, those didn't happen accidentally. You went out and got those.
Correct.
You went out and talked to people.
Yeah,
and we're annoying about your movie.
I turned the bell icon on Ben Stiller's tweets. Every time he tweeted, I would tweet at him.
Oh, my God. I mean, hey, don't hate the hustle if you see the results.
Yeah, like, it worked. You gotta take chances. I mean, the way I see it with the people who are higher above you, like you really only get one shot to ask them to do something big for you, and that's really it. And then you better be ready for what that thing is.
Okay, well, let's start to wrap this up by talking about the future and about hopefully your first debut writer and director feature gig. What can you tell us so far? We've talked about it a little bit, but like, what can you tell us about it, and what advice would you give to other feature writer directors who are hoping to get their movie made with like an actual budget and not just the pennies from Friends?
Yeah. My next feature film is going to be a horror feature that I wrote with my friend Patrick, which is a cosmic horror, basically. It's about a person whose father, after his father dies, he inherits his father's house, and in that house he finds a rug, and in that rug there's an alternate dimension. And in that alternate dimension, there's a child. So it's all about them kind of unraveling this mystery of who this baby is. And also every time he goes down to the rug, he goes crazier and crazier. The thing takes over his mind more and more. What I hope that people who are writer-directors take, it's hard to break into this industry. And for the most part, it's luck, right? But to become a working filmmaker, there are things that you might hate. Let's be honest, you're gonna hate a lot of this advice, because maybe you want to be doing like these intimate dramas, you want to be doing these comedies with whoever you want to work with. But the quicker you can start to understand the business of film, the more sustainable your career will be. Whether that means you're in the micro budget horror film world, you're making like your $60,000 horror films and figuring out where and who can buy those. Where they can play, stuff like that, or you're making, they're calling them urban noirs now. It's like it's like the new era of blaxploitation, but like there's an actual conversation happening in Hollywood about it now. I don't know if you guys have seen like the urban noirs on Tubi, which are like really low budget black filmmakers making these like movies that have the same, like there's like weird tropes in them, like there's always got to be a love triangle, there's got to be like a drug deal gone wrong or a money heist or something. Like it's a true fascinating phenomenon that's happening on like Tubi. But these filmmakers who are making them, they're getting views and they're making tons of money making these like very micro budget feature films. And now people are trying to get into those, like, and funding those people and like to get a little bit of that money, which is crazy. But like I don't think those people really understand that they're creating an industry right now and they don't even know it. And I hope they figure it out. If you're listening to this, oh my God, guys, if you're making those movies, you're in an industry and you're in the conversation right now. But the quicker you can understand what your niche is, and that doesn't mean you have to be put in that box forever, because as a writer director, you can always write your way out of the box. There are so many examples of people who write in different genres, and as long as you can write well in those genres, you will do fine. That being said, those big genres that get movies made that can be your step into the door are horror and action. If you can write good horror and producible horror or really good action movies that Gerard Butler can star in, like, you will get your foot in the door. You will these are movies that are being produced constantly because they make money. Horror.
I think sorry to cut you off. No. I hear that, and you're right. You are right, but it's one of those frustrating things to hear someone who genuinely loves horror movies and has always wanted to make horror movies. Sure. When like a white bro who looks down at horror movies is like, I'm gonna come in and make a thing and get my foot in the door, and then like women of color are being told no.
Yeah.
and they're genuinely trying to say stuff with their genre work, you know. And so that's just like a frustrating thing, because you're not wrong, but
this is what I was saying earlier, is like that model, that box that these people have learned, that business model of how to make those movies and make those shitty ass movies that break them into the industry. Like, we need to learn that, because they're gatekeeping that information, and the quicker you can learn it, and here's how you can learn it, and no one wants to do it, just go to AFM, go to American Film Market, and meet the buyers directly, meet the financiers directly. Like, don't build those connections yourself and figure out how to use those connections. Like, because foreign buyers come to AFM, meet those buyers and figure out what it means to pre-sell movies for yourself. You know what I mean? And these are things that I'm still learning. So like, I'm making mistakes, I'm learning, I'm figuring it out. But these are the steps to start to control your own business, your own career. So, Christina, what you're saying, like, is a valid concern. You and I have known each other for a long time now. And we've both been trying to break into this industry, you know, but like, we need to take the reins away from people who are using the means to create shitty work, and hopefully use that box, like I was saying, to do what we need to do and make it good. You know what I mean? So yeah, learning the industry, and it's so, again, and Christina, I said it's gonna suck to hear, and it does. It's a shitty thing to hear, because the quicker you can understand that, like, the horror genre and the action genre are the way these people are breaking into the industry and getting work, we need to start building the house for that. Like, as people of color, as people without means, and trying to find a way into the industry, it's like, we need to find a way to build our own houses. So yeah, I don't know, understanding the industry, as the business side of this industry, as quickly as possible. And the other thing would be is, this industry is so built on relationships in terms of like getting an actor attached, right? Like, that's the big thing. That's what everyone in this industry hears, right? There's a couple things you can do to help you, right? It's, one, maybe tweet at them. Tweet your movie at them. That's literally, it's worked for me in the past. Turn the bell icon on.
Even on Elon Musk's Twitter?
I actually, you know, it's funny. I deleted Twitter, so I have no idea what Twitter's.
You're like,
Christina and I do not know what to do about Twitter.
Yeah. I deleted it. You know, I obviously, after the whole, like, everyone in Hollywood punching down at me for saying stop telling people to go shoot it on an iPhone, I deleted my Twitter, because I was like, I don't need this. And I'm actually doing the work, and I'm not just sitting on Twitter tweeting the whole time. So I deleted Twitter. And then I thought about coming back to it, so I started a new Twitter, and then Elon Musk had bought it, and I just deleted it again. I was like, nah, fuck this. But like, Twitter's a good networking tool. Instagram's a good networking tool. Like, reach out to people, you know, send them, you know, don't be annoying about it. Like, in the sense that, be like, I need you to watch this. I need you to be my movie. Be like, it's building a relationship. It's getting your movie out there. Send it to them. You know, just hopefully they watch it, and if they don't, you know, go to film festivals, try to meet them, talk to them, you know, and also building relationships with sales agents, so you understand who are the actors that could raise a budget. And what is that budget? Like, if you find an actor who's worth $150,000, you can raise $150,000. Now, what does that look like, right? Like, how much are you paying them? How much are you raising on your own? Like, you know, minimum guarantees. Like, there's a friend of mine who makes horror films, right? He makes $100,000 horror films. He's got a minimum guarantee of making those horror films. Every time he goes to this distribution company, they give him $30K they give him $30K as a minimum guarantee, just on genre alone, to make this movie. And he doesn't have any name actors. So, but then he has to go out and raise the rest. So $70K he has to go raise. But that's not a hard ask when you're working within the model, you know, your box is in, right? I'm still learning. That's the thing. Is like, I don't know if I have all the answers yet, but as I come into the fourth time on this show, I hope I have more answers for you guys. Like, you know, I'm hoping that, like, I can help further explain this more to more filmmakers as we keep going.
We need more people who climb the ladders and don't, like, shut the trap door on their way.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
I think a lot of people do that.
Right. I don't know if that answers your question, but, like, again, like, anyone who's listening to this, like the fourth time I come onto the show, I hope I have more answers for you. Seriously, I hope I have. I'm just learning all this. This is like a month or two ago where I started really like learning as much as I could from these financiers, from these sales agents, from like, but it's only because now I'm getting access to them. Like, you know what I mean? Like, because I made this movie, I'm now getting access to people that I otherwise would not be getting access to. And I'm hoping that I can use that as a way to do more. And hopefully build a bridge, you know, find more, work with more filmmakers. And, you know, my future goal, you know, I was just talking about this today with a couple friends. I was like, I want to start a production company where I can just start producing other people's work. And work within this. If I can figure this financial model out, and figure out a decent enough stream of like how to make these movies and who's bankable and who's this and all this stuff and do it myself, I want to use that as a way to produce other filmmakers' work that I like, you know, and hopefully get them into the game.
Well, I love that goal.
Yeah.
We love you. We can't wait to give you your fourth time badge in a
Fourth
year.
time.
Fourth time on our cool track jackets or whatever the hell we're getting. Thank you so much, Micah, for coming back.
No problem. Love you guys. Yeah. Love all of you listening.
Love you.
Reach out to me if you guys have questions.
But not on Twitter.
Not on Twitter. I'm on Instagram. I'm on Instagram and I'm on Facebook, so feel free if anyone has any questions. If I can answer it, I will. If I can't, I'm sorry.
Thanks so much to Kelsey Rauber for our theme music, Kaylee Brown for our podcast art, and to all of you for listening. Links to learn more about them are in our episode description.
And thank you to our Booby VIPs who are our $10 supporters on Patreon, patreon.com/breakingoutpod. If you want a shout out at the end of every episode, just like our great friends Brandy Nicole Payne, Kelsey Rauber, and Norman Steinberg.